Hello everyone, my name is Benevolent Corvus. You can find me over on Instagram and TikTok, and welcome to my first YouTube video. So today I'm going to be doing the hashtag tarot collector that was created by Brant from Moonbaby. His deck is amazing, by the way, and I'm really excited to show you a little bit of my collection and sort of begin this journey together and take this leap of faith full moment. Okay, so my most expensive deck. So this deck is the indie version of the Our Tarot deck by Sarah Shipman. I saw this deck when I was first beginning to really deep dive into the tarot, and I figured that learning through historical figures would be such a great way to relate to the archetypes in the tarot. And then I found out the indie version was out of print, and I dove in for the first time into the world of tarot Facebook and delving into tarot YouTube and TarotTube and Instagram and all of those lovely things. And this deck is really responsible, I feel like, for me integrating myself into that community for the first time. This is such a cool Nine of Swords. Joanna of Castile is such a tragic figure. And this deck just shows such a wide range of such powerful women throughout history. And I wanted the indie version because although the mass market version is also gorgeous, I just fell in love with the creation of man, or in this case, woman, on the back. And there were just certain figures that are in the indie version that didn't make it to the mass market that I just really wanted in my deck. It's a gorgeous one. I really suggest that you go out and grab the mass market if you can. All right. Moving right on along, my least expensive deck. So my least expensive deck is Aquarian, and I chose this one. I have a bunch of decks in this similar price range of like mass market US games decks. This one is my lowest price because I bought this back when I was working at a local metaphysical shop, and that sweet, sweet discount came in handy for buying a lot of decks while I was there. And this is one of them, and it's such a beautiful deck. Gives me like Art Deco, 1970s does Art Deco, but it also gives me like a little bit like late 60s, like 67, 68 psychedelia. Such a cool deck. Like, I love the saturation in this card that's juxtaposed with like the really harsh, like completely non-pigmented faces in this card. And it's just such a lovely deck. I don't reach for it nearly as much as I should, but it's a cool one. Number 3, the deck other collectors might want to steal. So I have 2 in this category. So the Our Tarot is out of print and hard to find. So this is definitely was a hard one for me to track down. And then the other one is Majestic Earth. So Majestic Earth is another out of print deck, and I was lucky enough to snag one of the factory defect copies. And mine's pretty perfect. This was a 30% off copy, and just the art on this deck is stunning. And I bought it because of the Hermit. The Hermit is my favorite card, and I love this image. This painting is used very often as the cover art for a lot of Strauss's works, and it's also used for Death and Transfiguration, which is such a beautiful piece. And I think really embodies like a lot of the contemplation and solitude that's represented in that whole process of death and transfiguration, of the contemplating the world beyond our own and our own mortality and all of those things. And it's just such a wonderful use of pre-existing art. And it's very hard to get pre-existing art to work well in a tarot deck. And this just works impeccably well. Like, there are certain titles that have been changed to kind of make things fit a little bit better. Like, we have the Hierophant's Domain rather than the Hierophant, and then we have the Tempest is the Devil. So we have the Temptation, and then the Council of Law for Justice. So there are some slight modifications, but overall it just works so incredibly well. Like, look at that. That's insane how beautiful that is. And this is out of print. The creator has put up a few more factory seconds, and they've been coming in small batches, but you have to act quickly. It's on her website, which I'll include in the description. So you got to act fast. Just keep checking, get on her email list, and you can possibly snag one. All right, number 4, my strangest deck. So my strangest deck is the Luminous Void. This one is actually in the MIT gallery for art because of the art is just, it's exquisite, though it is a little odd. Like, I will admit that this is not everyone's cup of tea. This is certainly not a deck that I reach for first for client readings because it is so abstract, but it is wonderful for really diving into the psyche, really diving into like the inner depths of our minds. It's just such a cool deck, and it really allows you to just embrace the freeformness of the art style and just really like let go of any preconceived notions. It's a wonderful rose petal finish, and it's just stunning. Like, even the backs are just insane. Like, the shape is so cool too. So this is probably my most unusual deck. And then as far as a deck that other collectors are least likely to have, of my collection, I would probably say Tarot of the Golden Serpent. This is a majors only deck, and it really dives into a lot of the archetypes in Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Harris's Thoth Tarot. And it's just really going into all that juicy esotericism and everything like that. It's a weird one, but we have as my tarot coach, Joe Monteleone would say, the hot sauce and the cream cheese. I'm finishing up his course, Tarot Mothership, and it's been absolutely a wonderful experience. Highly recommend taking his next course. And this is a really cool one. It is available. It's just not a deck that I see too often. It's really cool. It's majors only, so it really just goes into those archetypes. It's great if you just want to lay down some larger themes. It's very, very cool. I like it a lot. And then we have my oldest deck. So this deck is the one that's been in my collection the longest, since I haven't been blessed yet to find any vintage RWSs or anything like that, though I am on the lookout if you have any extras. And this deck is Shadowscapes, and it's very, like, it has a lot of like fae or she influences, and it's just a very dreamy colorscape. I bought this deck when I was 12, which I was very into anime, and this is very like kind of that like manga style, and it's just such a lovely etheric deck. It has like those very calm purples, and I like this one a lot. I took a huge, it wasn't until I picked up Wild Unknown in 2016 or 17, can't really remember. It was 16 or 17 that I truly delved into tarot, but this was my first deck. This was the first time I really looked at tarot artwork and sort of explored the themes there, and it really, I think, sparked my journey in a wonderful way. All right, next up we have my newest deck. This is always the fun one. So I have 2 that I'm going to show for this category. One is a Lenormand, which is why I brought a tarot equivalent. And this is Precious Possum Lenormand by Logan over at Cards Made Mirror. This deck is available on his Etsy store, and it's just adorable. I bought this deck to really help me delve into Lenormand, and I've been really enjoying the experience. I've been reading reading Ronna George's book and really looking into Lenormand as a divination form. And I've actually been enjoying reading Lenormand alongside a tarot card pull. I've been pulling a tarot card and then using it to sort of fill in the blanks between my Lenormand sentences. And it's really been something that I've been enjoying a lot. My other newest deck is another fun one. This one's tarot. This is Terra Volatile by Credo Qui Absurdum. They're an artist collective based out of Portugal, and this deck was one of their factory seconds. They had a lot of issues with the second printing of this deck. They said that there was spotting on the back of some of the cards, and honestly, you can barely see it on my copy. And it's just a gorgeous deck, and even if it's supposedly imperfect, it's still perfect in my eyes. It's a beautiful linen cardstock, and it delves into a lot of the more alchemical aspects. It actually has an extra suit of vessels, which goes into the element of ether, and it's just a really gorgeous, dark and broody deck. And it gets into a lot of the archetypes that have been kind of nice washed in other decks. And it's just a wonderful, gorgeous, it looks like the classic art, but it's all new art, and it's just wonderfully constructed. I've been so happy with it, and it shuffles like a dream. The deck that made me start collecting. So that goes back to our tarot again. This was my first foray into the trading communities, and I joined the Facebook marketplace groups for the first time and really met my people. Finding this deck led me to Tarot Facebook, which introduced me to all of my book club members who have been so lovely, who then proceeded to introduce me to Joe and Tarot Mothership. And through that, I've had so many experiences that I never would have had if I wasn't for the search for this indie deck. And it's just opened so many doors for me. Just the process of looking into the tarot communities, joining all the different groups, discussing everyone's favorite cards and creators, and talking to a whole bunch of different tarot tubers. It's just opened so many doors. And from adding this deck to my collection, it started everything for me. It started my journey with tarot and classes and building my tarot business, and it's really just opened a ton of doors. My favorite deck. This is a loaded question. This is like choosing a favorite child. The deck that has been my favorite for a very long time is Ethereal Visions. This is the deck that I bought at the same time as our tarot, and was really at the start of that whole tarot collecting, really exploring. This is the deck that I really cut my teeth on a lot of the archetypes once I truly started that deep dive study. And it's just a beautiful, very light deck. The reason why it's sort of drifting out of favorite status, though it is still a deck that I really enjoy, is because I'm looking for something that goes a little deeper. And that's why I've been loving Terra Volatile, is because it does go there and it does dive deep. This is still my favorite deck to use for client readings, probably alongside This Might Hurt, because it's light and it's not scary, and it allows clients to sort of put themselves into the art because it's so wide open. And it's, like I said, it's not scary. It's light and airy, and it just tells you what you need to know, and it doesn't hold anything back. Another favorite of mine is Mystic Masters by Danny Mystic, and this plays exactly into that sort of dark, broody, and moody mood that I've really been enjoying. I like darker colored decks. It just speaks to my personal aesthetic, and this is a deck that I use for both clients and myself. I use this for myself an awful lot, and I love the fact that Danny has integrated so many Greek gods and goddesses, like Fortuna is in the Wheel of Fortune, and she goes into all of this in her series on her YouTube channel, where she goes into a digital guidebook of sorts and gives her thoughts and the art direction behind it. And I can feel that creative energy pulsing through this deck. It feels like you can tell that she really put her all into this deck, and you can feel the fact that each card is incredibly intentional. And it was so wonderful that we got to see parts of the process through her YouTube channel. And that just makes the deck even more special for me. And those are my 10 prompts. I have also really been enjoying going back into the original Rider-Waite, and I have some study decks that are on the way, and I plan on discussing the differences between the PAMs and going into all of that symbolism. And I'm almost done with the Tarot Mothership course, which means that you have a lot of Thoth and Kabbalah videos to come, and I'm just so excited to see how this journey unfolds, to see what we can unpack together as a community, and to see where this whole venture goes. Best wishes.